No one in Patna could have imagined that behind the bright lights of a famous hospital, a storm was silently brewing, one that would shatter lives, destroy reputations, and leave a city terrified. The story you're about to hear begins on an ordinary morning in a hospital known for saving lives. But that day, instead of hope, something dark walked through its doors. And within just a few hours, a respected doctor would be lying dead in her own cabin, murdered in a way so cold and calculated that even the police were shocked. This wasn't just a crime. It was the beginning of a mystery that would shake Bihar to its core. Asia Hospital stood proudly in the heart of Patna, a bustling multi-specialty center run by Dr. Rakesh Roshan and his wife, Dr. Surabhi Raj. Both were widely known among the local people, not just as successful doctors but as an ideal couple who managed a large hospital together. Their hospital was always filled with patients, machines beeping, nurses rushing around, and doctors constantly moving from one room to another. For many families, this hospital was a place where miracles happened every day. Surabhi was loved by her patients for her warm nature, while Rakesh was admired for his skill and discipline. From the outside, everything seemed almost perfect. That morning, 22nd March 2025, started just like every other day. After finishing her morning chores, Dr. Surabhi reached the hospital at around 11:30 a.m. She greeted a few nurses on the way and walked toward her cabin on the second floor. Her cabin was a bright, organized space filled with medical files, patient records, and certificates on the wall. She sat on her revolving chair, adjusted her glasses, and began reading some important reports. The hospital corridor outside was crowded, echoing with footsteps and murmurs. While Surabhi got busy, her husband, Dr. Rakesh, was resting at home due to illness, a rare day when he wasn't present at the hospital. Around 1:55 p.m., two young men entered the hospital. They blended in so naturally that not a single staff member suspected anything unusual. They kept their heads low, walked with confidence, and moved straight toward the second floor. The CCTV would later reveal that they had been observing the hospital for weeks, learning every entry, exit, and blind spot. As they approached Surabhi's cabin, one of them checked the corridor, no security guard nearby. What happened next took less than 20 seconds, but changed everything. Surabhi looked up from her files when she heard the cabin door open. Two unfamiliar men stepped inside without knocking. For a moment, she thought they must be patients who'd come to the wrong room. But their expressions were cold, emotionless. Instantly, her heartbeat quickened. "Who are you? How did you enter without knocking?" "Security," she said, raising her voice. Before she could stand up, one of the men slapped her so hard that her glasses flew across the table. Her voice died in her throat as she struggled to understand what was happening. The taller man leaned close, his face expressionless, and pulled out a pistol fitted with a silencer. Small, deadly, and frighteningly quiet. He pressed the gun to her temple and whispered, "Don't make a sound. If you scream again, I'll blow your head off right here." Surabhi's hands trembled. Terror washed over her. She folded her palms and begged, "Please don't hurt me. Why are you doing this? What do you want?" Her voice cracked as tears filled her eyes. She thought they might want money or valuables, but their eyes told a different story. This wasn't a robbery. This was an execution. Before Surabhi could plead further, the man stepped back slightly and fired the first shot. The silencer muted the sound, but the force jerked her body backward. In panic, she tried to move, but a second shot hit her chest. Then a third, then a fourth. Within seconds, her body collapsed into the chair, sliding sideways, her blood spreading across the floor. The killers showed no hesitation, no rush, no fear. They had come with only one purpose, and they executed it with chilling precision. Surabhi's lifeless body lay still while her white doctor's coat turned red. After ensuring she was dead, the men calmly removed the silencer, tucked the pistol into their waist, and opened the cabin door. The corridor was still noisy, still busy, unaware that a murder had just taken place a few feet away. Walking casually, they moved toward the staircase instead of the elevator, exactly as planned. CCTV later showed them leaving the hospital with the same relaxed posture with which they had entered. No panic, no running, no mistakes. It was the kind of murder that looked like it belonged in a movie, not real life. Meanwhile, inside the cabin, Surabhi's blood slowly trickled across the tiles and gathered near the door. Her files lay scattered on the table, some soaked in red. Minutes passed, or then more minutes. No one knocked. No, the hospital continued functioning like nothing had happened. It would be nearly an hour before a nurse walked in to give her an updated patient file, and what she saw sent her into uncontrollable screams that echoed through the entire building. By the time help arrived, it was already too late. Doctors, nurses, and staff stood frozen as they looked at the horrific scene. Some cried, some covered their mouths in shock. The hospital that had always symbolized healing and life was now the center of a brutal murder. Word spread across the city in minutes. Police sirens soon filled the area, reporters gathered outside, and chaos erupted everywhere. But amidst all the noise, one question loomed over everyone's mind. Why would anyone want to kill Dr. Surabhi? What no one knew yet was that this murder wasn't random. It wasn't a robbery. It wasn't a mistake. This was a message, and the real story was far more twisted than anyone could imagine. And as the police moved deeper into the investigation, one unexpected name would soon rise to the surface, shocking everyone. The city of Patna was still reeling from the shocking news. Dr. Surabhi's death had left everyone stunned. Patients, hospital staff, and even her own family could barely process the horror. But while grief consumed the public behind the scenes, the investigation was revealing a tangled web of betrayal, greed, and forbidden desire. The police arrived quickly, yet even their presence seemed insufficient against the meticulous planning that had gone into the crime. Nothing was left to chance. The scene was clean, the CCTV cameras disabled, and no fingerprints remained. It was as if the murder had been orchestrated by someone who knew every detail of the hospital, every blind spot, every routine. At the heart of the mystery was Dr. Rakesh Roshan, the grieving husband. Or at least that's what everyone saw on the outside. Rakesh had always been respected for his professional accomplishments, but behind closed doors a secret had been quietly simmering for years. A secret that now, in the aftermath of Surabhi's death, would expose the darkest side of human nature. While Surabhi had devoted herself to the hospital and her family, Rakesh's heart had wandered long ago. A young, ambitious HR manager named Alka had caught his attention, and over time, a dangerous liaison had blossomed, hidden behind polite smiles and office routines. The affair had been years in the making, subtle and invisible to the outside world. Rakesh had carefully maintained his image, even with Surabhi always around, knowing she trusted him completely. But love, or lust, can make people reckless. The more Rakesh became entangled with Alka, the more he began to resent the constraints of his marriage. Surabhi's intelligence, independence, and persistent care for the hospital were no longer charming. They were obstacles. And in his twisted mind, he began to imagine a world where Surabhi simply didn't exist. The plans he would hatch over the coming months would be cunning, calculated, and horrifying in their precision. It began with small manipulations. Rakesh controlled the hospital finances, giving Alka more influence under the pretense of her role. He used every opportunity to isolate Surabhi, redirecting attention and responsibilities. Slowly, Surabhi started noticing subtle changes, decisions being made without her consent, tasks reassigned to others, and increasing interference from Alka. Though she loved her husband, she could not ignore these red flags. Confrontations became frequent, her questions sharp, her suspicions growing. Rakesh, now desperate to maintain his double life, had to think of a permanent solution, one that no one could suspect. In January 2025, the conspiracy took shape. Rakesh summoned Alka, his younger brother Ramesh, and two trusted hospital staff members, Anil and Masood Alam, to a secret meeting. The room was closed, the guards instructed to never allow anyone near, and an unspoken tension hung in the air. The plan, as Rakesh revealed it, was simple in words but deadly in execution. Surabhi had to be removed from the picture permanently. Every participant was warned, any leak, any hesitation, and they would face consequences. The group swore loyalty. Each person understood the stakes. The air in the room was thick with fear and anticipation, a quiet horror that no outsider could have imagined. The team began the meticulous preparation. CCTV cameras on the hospital floor where Surabhi worked were strategically disabled, some officially malfunctioning for weeks prior to the murder. Ramesh, the loyal brother, oversaw internal movements to ensure no witness could see anything unusual. Alka kept track of Surabhi's schedule, noting every time she arrived, every meeting, every step she took during the day. Meanwhile, Rakesh handled finances, ensuring that enough money was allocated to hire contract killers. These killers were chosen for their experience, for their precision, for the certainty that they could execute the plan without leaving evidence. The entire scheme was a symphony of evil, each piece moving in perfect synchronization. Weeks passed as Surabhi continued her daily routine, unaware of the deadly trap closing around her. The killers observed from a distance, studying her habits, the routes she preferred and the times she was most vulnerable. Rakesh and Alka communicated in secret, exchanging plans and updates, while Ramesh and the staff ensured that the hospital appeared completely normal. Surabhi, ever diligent and trusting, noticed nothing unusual. To her, the world seemed ordinary. But in reality, she was walking toward the most dangerous moment of her life, a moment she could never escape. By March, the plan was ready. Everything was aligned. The cameras, the staff, the hired killers. On 22nd March 2025, the final act would unfold. Rakesh stayed away under the pretense of illness, while Alka coordinated from another location. Ramesh, Anil, and Masood were in position, ready to assist if needed. The killers entered the hospital without suspicion, moving with precision and confidence. Surabhi, engaged with her paperwork and thinking only of patients and files, did not hear the footsteps that would soon change everything. The trap was set, and she walked unknowingly into it. Then, in less than a heartbeat, everything changed. Surabhi's world, previously defined by compassion, knowledge, and care, turned into chaos. The killers struck with cold efficiency, silencing her before she could cry out. Every shot fired, every movement executed was part of the master plan. Outside, the hospital remained oblivious, the sounds of routine life continuing as if nothing had occurred. And yet, inside, a murder of unimaginable cruelty had taken place, orchestrated by people she trusted the most: her husband, his lover, and a network of loyal conspirators. After the murder, the killers exited, leaving behind a scene that was horrifying yet strangely clean. Blood had been wiped, the cabin restored to near normal, and no one could have guessed what had just occurred. Within hours, the staff discovered her body and panic rippled through the hospital. The police were called and the investigation began, but even as they probed, nothing made sense. Who could have committed such a crime? And why? The answer, hidden in layers of deception and greed, was far more shocking than anyone imagined. As the city mourned, a dark secret loomed over every hospital hallway, waiting to be uncovered. The events of that day set in motion a chain reaction that would expose every betrayal, every lie, and every human weakness. Surabhi's death was no accident. It was a calculated crime, one that would force the city, the police, and her own family to confront the unimaginable truth. Behind the grief and horror, the story of love, lust, and deception unfolded. A story so twisted that the real motives would shock even the most seasoned investigators. And yet, as the first clues emerged, the most dangerous questions remained unanswered. Who could orchestrate such a perfect crime? And how far would humans go when desire and greed take control? The aftermath of Dr. Surabhi's murder left Patna in a state of shock. The city had never witnessed a crime so meticulously planned, nor a betrayal so intimate. While her family mourned, the police intensified their investigation, piecing together the puzzle that seemed deliberately designed to mislead them. Every lead pointed to a network of trusted people, yet the deeper they dug, the more carefully hidden the truth became. The hospital, once a place of healing and hope, had turned into a stage for a sinister act that blurred the lines between love, greed, and cold-blooded ambition. Detective Inspector Ramayan Ram and his team began the painstaking work of tracing the crime. Initial observations revealed oddities that contradicted the apparent chaos. The blood on the floor had been wiped clean, the cabin appeared almost untouched, and the CCTV DVR had mysteriously vanished. These anomalies made it clear that this was not a crime of passion or chance. It was a calculated murder orchestrated by someone who knew the hospital inside out. Every step, every precaution, and every misdirection had been meticulously planned to ensure the police would struggle to uncover the truth. The investigation quickly turned toward Dr. Rakesh Roshan, her husband. His grief seemed genuine, but detectives noticed inconsistencies in his account. Phone records, financial statements, and witness testimonies began to paint a very different picture. Conversations with Alka, the HR manager, revealed a secret affair that had been going on for years. While the public had seen Rakesh as a respected doctor, his private life told a story of obsession and recklessness. His love for Alka had driven him to plot the unthinkable, the murder of his own wife, just to protect his desires and preserve his freedom. As questioning continued, Ramesh, Rakesh's younger brother, and two hospital staff members, Anil and Masood Alam, were also brought under intense scrutiny. Their loyalty to Rakesh had crossed the line from familial devotion to active participation in a heinous conspiracy. Faced with evidence and relentless interrogation, the group began to crack. One by one, confessions emerged, revealing the depth of deception that had been carefully concealed. Each revelation added layers of shock to an already horrified police force. The story of Surabhi's life, love, and tragic end was now intertwined with betrayal at every level. The confessions exposed the premeditated nature of the crime. Rakesh had manipulated hospital operations to create the perfect environment for the murder. CCTV cameras were intentionally disabled weeks in advance, key staff members were complicit, and contract killers were hired to execute the act with precision. The killers, carefully chosen for their experience and discretion, had been monitoring Surabhi for weeks. Every move she made had been noted, every routine documented. The murder, which appeared chaotic to an outsider, was in reality a flawless execution of a sinister plan. Even the smallest details of the murder were revealed during interrogations. After the killers had shot Surabhi, the crime scene had been cleaned so thoroughly that no bloodstains remained, no fingerprints were left, and no trace of evidence existed to suggest foul play. The DVR containing all hospital footage was hidden, and any potential witness had been strategically kept away. It was a level of calculation that made investigators both uneasy and impressed at the precision with which human life had been manipulated for selfish gain. Yet the truth was undeniable. Rakesh and his accomplices had conspired with deliberate intent to kill the woman he had once loved. The revelations sent shockwaves through Surabhi's family. Her father, Rajesh Sinha, was devastated, struggling to comprehend how the man he had trusted could plan such a brutal betrayal. Her siblings were equally shaken. The very people Surabhi had considered family, her husband, and even those close to them, had become instruments of her murder. The betrayal cut deeper than the crime itself. Her life dedicated to healing others had been snatched away not by strangers, but by the very people she loved and trusted the most. The city mourned, but it also demanded justice. In the courtroom, the trial revealed the full extent of the conspiracy. Evidence presented by the police showed financial transactions, communication records, and witness statements that left little room for doubt. Rakesh, Alka, Ramesh, Anil, and Masood Alam were all implicated in the murder. The plan that had seemed perfect in secrecy now became the foundation for their conviction. The court heard how greed, lust, and ambition had led to the unthinkable, transforming a loving family into a web of deceit and murder. The trial became a chilling example of human obsession and moral collapse. Through it all, Surabhi's story became a symbol of courage, perseverance, and integrity. Even in death, her life inspired reflection on the fragility of trust and the dangers of unchecked desire. The city of Patna watched closely as justice took its course, ensuring that the conspirators would face the consequences of their actions. Yet the lingering questions about human motives, the darkness that can exist behind closed doors, and the fine line between love and obsession, remained in the minds of all who followed the case. Finally, after months of investigation and legal proceedings, the case reached its resolution. The murderers were arrested, the hospital's complicity was exposed, and Surabhi's family began the painful process of healing. But even with justice served, the story left an indelible mark on everyone involved. It was a cautionary tale about how secrets, when allowed to fester, could lead to destruction, and how even the most trusted relationships could hide deadly intentions. Surabhi's death was a tragedy, but it became a lesson in vigilance, morality, and the importance of protecting oneself against betrayal. As the courtroom emptied and the city tried to recover, one question lingered in the minds of those who had followed the case from the beginning. How well do we truly know the people closest to us? Surabhi's story was horrifying because it was so personal, so intimate, a reminder that danger sometimes comes not from strangers but from those we love and trust. And so the story ends with a question for you, the viewer. If someone you loved and trusted could betray you in the most unimaginable way, how would you ever know, and what would you do? Think about it.